And we're going to go ahead and get going. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here today. And I'm excited for everybody to learn about the impressive work of the Stuttgart region around bike planning and development. My name is Rebecca Murphy, and I'm the Coastal Program Manager for the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. For those that are unfamiliar with NVRC, we are a regional council of 13 local governments spanning from Prince William up to Loudoun County in Northern Virginia. So if you'd like to learn more about our organization, you can visit www.novaregion.org. But this afternoon, I'm really excited to share the work of the Stuttgart region in Germany around bike planning and their related development. The Stuttgart region in Germany has a very long history with holistic bike planning to promote this as a viable transportation alternative to vehicle transport. And so really this has resulted in bike paths that promote easy access between urban, recreational, and agricultural areas, and are also very safe, well marked, and digitally accessible and navigable. So again, I'm excited to share this information with you today because I think it can support a lot of best practices and ideas for how we think about active transportation in Northern Virginia. And I see a number of folks from our trails planning as well as bike ped organizations in the region. So I'm excited to have you online to hear about what this can mean for Northern Virginia. To give a little bit of background, I'm joined by Nadine Mueller, who's the Officer for Transport Planning for Verband Region Stuttgart, and Martin Hasenacker, who serves as the Specialist for Bicycle Planning in the City of Stuttgart. I'll let them tell a little bit more about themselves and their role in each organization as they get going. But before we do so, just some housekeeping items. So as you'll have noticed, we are in a webinar format. So to involve as many of you as possible for discussions and questions, we ask that you put any comments into the chat box and then any questions into the Q&A box during the presentation. And then at the end, we're hoping that we'll have about 15 minutes to be able to respond to any questions in the Q&A. And if there's any additional discussion topics that you would like to include, you can put them in at that time. Again, please note that this webinar is also recorded and this will be uploaded to NVRC's YouTube page and website afterwards. So thank you again for joining us. And Nadine and Martin, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. First of all, I'll start to share my screen. 1 second, please. Here. And there you go. Now you should see my screen. Yeah, great. So thanks a lot to the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to initiate that great webinar. We love to talk about how to promote and support biking. So I'm really glad that we have this webinar session today, and maybe we can learn from each other and give you a little of an insight of what we do in the Stuttgart region and in the core of our region in the Stuttgart city. So here you see the agenda for today's session. First of all, as I'm an officer for transport planning in the Stuttgart region, I will start with the regional scope. So I will give you a few figures about how our region looks like and how mobility in our region looks like before heading to the bike in particular and which frameworks we have to support the bike in a very holistic approach together with other transport modes, and which activities beside that we have to support biking in our region and to support, of course, our local governments and our counties by that. And last but not least, I have one very great example of how we have an integrated planning approach between landscape, park planning, and bike planning to support biking in our very nice environment that we have here surrounding all of our 179 municipalities. Then I will hand over to Martin, who's the specialist for bicycle planning in the city of Stuttgart, in the core of our region. And he will tell you a few figures about the city, how they promote bicycle traffic in Stuttgart, and he will give some very nice examples how the regional network and the local one work together and hand in hand. And he will show you some examples about that. So first of all, where we are. So we are located in Central Europe, in the southwest of Germany, and we are one of 12 regions in the state of Baden-Württemberg. We got 6 counties within our region. We got 179 communities within our region, and we got the capital of the state of Baden-Württemberg, the city of Stuttgart, in the heart of it. And anyway, we are one action area, one unit, especially when it comes to transport, which is why a multi-level governance approach is so important and regional cooperation is so important for us, because traffic just happens no matter which administrative boundaries we cross. To give you some figures, how the region looks like, here on this slide, I wanted to show you that on only 10% of the surface of Baden-Württemberg, which is our region, there's living a quarter of the whole population of the state. So you see, we have a very densely populated and metropolitan area. We have a lot of people living here. It's 2.8 million. And these people are making a lot of trips every day, which is why we have to organize mobility in the most sustainable way that is possible. And also we got a lot of big companies here and a lot of jobs, which is why we are the economic powerhouse, you can say, of the state of Baden-Württemberg. So we have a lot of companies from the automotive industry. We have a lot of very strong middle centers, which is why we want to organize these trips more environmentally friendly, because at the moment it's very car dominated, you can say. But with this great economic power, we contribute to 1/3 of the economic power of the whole state. So now when it comes to mobility, I got a few figures for you from our last household survey, which we did in 2010 to develop our transport model. And next year we will have the new version of that, because we will do another one to have new data after the COVID pandemic and other societal influences that maybe changed transport behavior. So with this data, we can say that an average person on an exemplary working day makes around about 3.5 trips per day, travels 36 kilometers per day, and needs around about 80 minutes for that. And when we have a look at the whole volume of the people living here in our region, we have 8.3 million trips every day. So you see, it's a lot. And now the important thing is to see how is the modal share when it comes to this huge amount of these trips. So I underlined the bicycle, of course, because we are talking about that very important transport mode today. But within the regional figures down there, you see that the car is dominating with 55% of all the trips. Then we got the pedestrians with 24%, the public transport with 13%, and the bicycle was in 2010 at 7.7. We hopefully will have a huger figure here when we have our results in maybe the end of next year, because we expect this figure to have been rising in the last few years, because we have more pedelecs in the region. You can say 10% more or less of the bikes are pedelecs. And we have also a behavioral change. So we think, so we will see next year. And as we are in the region, we have very different spatial types here. So we got in the core of our region, the city of Stuttgart, a very urban environment. And when we go more to the outskirts, we have rural areas, and peri-urban areas, which is why, of course, the modal split is very different in the city of Stuttgart. So there I got numbers too for you to compare. So the bicycle, for example, makes up to 14% of the trips in the city of Stuttgart, which is much more than we have on the regional scope. And when it comes to the car, it's also not that dominating like in the region. It's a little bit more than 30%. And public transport makes up to 36% and the pedestrians to 19%. So much of an insight into our mobility. This heat map should also visualize that we already do have a comprehensive bicycle network here in Stuttgart region. You see the brighter the color is, the more volume is on these lanes. So this heat map really makes clear that we have a lot of bicycle users here who use, in this case, Strava Metro to track their trips for commuting and for leisure. But anyway, we have air to the top. We have a lot to do, and we will show you a little bit about that. To get the holistic approach of the Regional Association of Stuttgart, one have to say that our major task is in regional planning, spatial planning, where we protect open space. We have the duty to plan and finance the metropolitan train. We search for sites for renewables, affordable housing. So these are all our main tasks. And when it comes to mobility, we have a unique position in consideration that we have a compulsory task by law to have a sustainable regional mobility plan for the functional urban area of the Stuttgart region. This is due to the fact that we have a lot of authority for the S-Bahn. And the S-Bahn is a very important transport mode here that a lot of people use every day. And with this sustainable regional mobility plan, which complies to the EU regulations, how a SUMP should look like, we provide technical explanations for our regional plan. Because the regional plan, like in the first case, guarantees space for infrastructure. And then the sustainable regional mobility plan explains the transport-related determinations for that. So which measures need to be done. So it's an integrated action plan, you can say, that covers rail, road, bike, freight, logistics, and so on, even though we don't have authority when it comes to planning for all of these transport modes. So it's kind of a action plan that considers all of the transport modes and considers the interactions between the open space, settlement, and mobility. But we have to have a multi-level governance approach with the counties, with the state of Baden-Württemberg, with the national level, and of course, most importantly, with the city of Stuttgart, for example, with our local cities and municipalities, because they are planning and realizing a lot in the end. But we have kind of a guideline which measures are needed to have certain effects and to shift people, most importantly, to more environmentally friendly transport modes. And another central task is, of course, to ensure mobility needs and transport needs and accessibility in the region. And when we have a look at the bike in particular, you can say we have a few components that are integrated into that framework. I will just list them, and then later on I got slides to explain them in particular. So we have a regional bicycle network that we developed together with the stakeholders that are responsible for the bicycle infrastructure. So with the state, the districts, and the municipalities. Then we have a network of fast bicycle lanes, which has to meet certain criteria that I will show later. And then we have regional mobility hubs, which are kind of multimodal hubs at train stations that should also support biking, because we have a lot of facilities there that are needed to do bike and ride, for example. And then we have a region-wide bicycle sharing system, so not just in one city, but in the whole region, which is called Regiorad. So these are the main components that we have. So let's start with the first one. So the regional bicycle network covers, first of all, the existing bicycle lanes on the state level, the county level, and the local level. And then together with the authorities, we identified 72 measures that are important to improve the bicycle network on a regional scope and to improve and guarantee the accessibility, so that the major centers, Stuttgart, and also the middle centers and small centers are accessible by bike. And it focuses mostly on the daily traffic, so for commuting, bike commuting, and so on. And also, these measures are undergoing a regular monitoring. So every 2 years, we are monitoring how the measures are going on and are realized, or how the process is going. And we have at the moment 30% of these measures already realized or in realization. Yes, so this is one of our main concepts. And then I will head to the next one. This is mainly an initiative of the state of Baden-Württemberg, which got the goal to have at least 20 fast bicycle lanes till 2030, to offer a great possibility to car drivers, instead of commuting with the car, commuting with the bike. So this should really influence a shift from the car to the bike, this project. And again, the counties and the cities and the state are responsible here for, in the end, building and planning this infrastructure, and the funding comes from the national and the state level. Our role in this whole fast bicycle lane project is to have a coordination on the regional level. So these yellow corridors show the corridors where we did the feasibility studies with our transport model. So we came together and talked about important connecting points, for example, and preferred routes. And we also talked about space on the regional level that can be kept free for these lanes in planning. So this is our role here. And in green, you see the already realized parts of this network. You see one here and a little bit here. And the yellow ones are the preferred routes at the moment, but still in planning, in the planning process. And now the difference between a normal and regional bicycle lane and the fast bicycle lane is that they are wider. They have to be at least 4 meters wide. They gotta be as intersection free as possible. They have certain criteria for the surface. And they have to connect at least 2 counties at a length of at least 5 kilometers. So there are a lot of criteria that you have to meet to get financiation in the end. But it's a great project to offer attractive and safe bicycle infrastructure for the people here. And our transport model, you can see it here, was the basis for these feasibility studies that then counties and cities could use to do these studies and find out about potential preferred routes for that. Here you see 2 photos of already realized parts of these routes. So you see the green marking, the width, and this is really a direct, fast, and safe route, you can say. Yeah, and we are happy that we have a lot of them already in the planning phase here. Other activities besides these 2 networks and grids that we are supporting and monitoring, are projects like these, for example. So we have a co-funding project, which is called regional mobility hubs. So we have these mobility hubs at certain train stations, and there are criteria that they have to meet to be implemented there. So cities get co-funding by us if they have these hubs, if they have safe bicycle facilities, Regiorad, bike sharing stations, car sharing stations, if there is an access to the train, bike and ride facilities, park and ride. So all these multimodal possibilities are here, and we co-finance that, and we have really great examples, which you can see here and there from a city where I am from, with very safe bicycle storage facilities, and the people really use it. Another project that we have is also about safe bicycle storage facilities and safe and charging stations. You see a picture down there from one of these parking facilities that we realized, and cities again can apply for that financiation, and then we make a certain deal with certain criteria for that to be realized. And last but not least, we have a regional bike sharing system, which is called Regiorad. You see the blue bikes there. We have a pedelec and a normal one. And we have in around 30 cities in the region, we got 230 stations. Yeah, so far so good. These were the main projects focusing on the bicycle. And on my last slide, I would just like to underline again from the regional planning scope coming, our integrated planning approach, that we always try to connect open space planning with touristic bicycle infrastructure planning. So this is just one example where we upgraded with, again, a co-financing project, a already existing regional bicycle route with new signs, a better surface. We have covered some seatings here along the route, so you can enjoy the landscape, and a lot of other things more that underline the characteristics of the landscape in that region. And this cooperation was together with 2 districts from our region and with 17 municipalities. And this is also one of the nice co-funding possibilities we have, besides other planning authorities that we have, because like I said, in bicycle planning, we don't have the hands-on authority, but we try as good as we can to support making the bike more attractive by such projects. So far from my side, and I will hand over to my colleague Martin now.
Thanks a lot, Nadine. I share my slides. And hello, everyone. Okay, now you see my first slide. Yeah, my name is Martin Hasenecker. Traffic planner, especially for bikes here in the city of Stuttgart. Of course, you can contact me if you have any questions afterwards. And yeah, now I want to talk about bike planning in the city of Stuttgart. I give you some examples. And first of all, a very brief insight into the city, and then I give you an overview of the topics, how to bring more people on bikes, what we do in parking, in comfort, in information, in service, and last but not least, in infrastructure. And I show you our route number 1 and some measures, what we did there to bring more people on bikes. Okay, the city of Stuttgart, yeah, it's the capital of Baden-Württemberg, as you heard. We have 630,000 inhabitants, and Stuttgart is a quite hilly city. Yeah? This is sometimes it's very challenging to ride the bike, and riding a bike means climbing. Sometimes it's hard in the planning of bicycle routes. For example, in discussions with the citizens and with politicians, they always talk about in Stuttgart you can't ride a bike. We have too much hills, but we try to give them a chance. We count bicycle traffic at 13 locations in our urban area, and this always gives us a good overview of the development of cycling in the city. But of course, we do not get a lot of valid data, but we show that every biker counts, and the bikers like to ride along those counting stations and see one more this day. What else do we do? Of course, parking is a very important part in bicycle planning, and people use their bikes when they are easily accessible. And we offer a wide range of parking facilities in the residential areas, at train stations as well, in leisure destinations. And sometimes they are free to use, and sometimes they are covered and lockable, and sometimes even with a repair service. Our cycle routes should all be signposted. This is very important for the orientation, and very important for tourists as well. And we include information about our destinations and our leisure tours, like as you can see in the picture above. And what we else do is we have developed a navigator specifically for cycling and the combination of cycling and public transport for Stuttgart and the region of Stuttgart. The connection between public transport and cycling is very important to us, especially in our hilly region. Some people want to cycle downhill. They're living uphill, working downhill. Cycle down, but after a hard day of work, they don't want to cycle back up again. So we have a streetcar and as well a bus where you can take your bike with easy access and good prices to come back home without cycling. Yeah? And this connection between biking and using public transport is very important to bring more people on bikes. And yeah, you heard a lot about Regiorad. Nadine talked about it, and of course Stuttgart as well is. We support Regiorad, and we do have a lot of stations where you can rent a bike and just go to the next Regiorad station. And this is very important for the connection between public transport and riding bikes. Lastly, before I talk about infrastructure, good communication, of course, is very important. And yeah, we are using Instagram as well, but also the traditional way with information events, with political bike tours. We meet people who are interested in cycling in Stuttgart, going around and talking about measures or what we can do to support bikers more. Okay, now the regional network Nadine has already introduced to us also runs through Stuttgart, of course, but we also have other local routes so that our network is denser overall. But of course, we are still at the concept level here in not everything has been built yet. The fast bike connection, for example, in particular, are still very new for us, and we haven't built any of these in Stuttgart yet, but we are in the planning stage. And the same applies to our local network. And today we have implemented around 13% of our routes in Stuttgart, and and we are planning and working along with it. Okay, here we see that the network is a lot denser than in the region and in the city, a lot more than in the outer villages of Stuttgart. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the planning process. How does it work when we plan a route? And yeah, we want to promote cycling, and this is reason enough for us to start planning and to create a concept. And we always, and this is very, very important to us, want to involve citizens and politicians in the process at a very early stage so that we can achieve a good result in the project. And once the pre-planning has been completed, our local council decides on the planning. They are discussing, of course, a lot, and they have to give the financing for the project. And afterwards, after the resolution of the concept, we get into detailed planning, and before the new route can be built. And yeah, in Germany or in our city, it depends a little bit on the project, but to finalize a route from the beginning, from the very early concept stage to the building, we need sometimes 5 to 7 years. So we are not that far or as fast as we want to be. And yeah, here you can see more or less the same, but visualized. And, so my part in the city of Stuttgart is the concept and the pre-planning. So this is in our urban planning and housing. That's what I do. And afterwards, we have the civil engineering, which are planning the more details, and afterwards they are building the route. And before I show you some examples on our route number 1, I just want to talk a little bit about how we choose the right infrastructure for bikers. And in Germany, we look at how much traffic is on a road and how fast people are allowed to drive in the road. And then we choose if we need a separated bike lane, or if we don't need a separated bike lane and mixed traffic, also to mix cars and bikes is possible for us. And that's how we start in the planning process and start to concept our bike routes. Yeah, the route number 1 in Stuttgart is one of the most frequented used cycle routes, and it runs through the city, and it's about 11 miles and 1,300 feet in altitude. And we do have a lot of bikers in the route, but of course, most of the bikers don't use the whole route in one trip. But for example, here located at where you can see the river, there are more or less 1 million bikers a year crossing the bridge. Yeah, I'll show you 6 examples and along a bike route. Yeah, in Germany we distinguish between dashed lines and solid lines, and bike lanes with dashed lines may be used by cars sometimes, and solid lines are only for bikers. And yeah, generally speaking, the solid one is better, but the solid line requires more space. And of course, in our city, in our dense city, sometimes we don't have as much space as we need for very good infrastructure. So sometimes we use the dashed lines as well. But here I show you an example in bike lane Kaltental. We had the dashed line over the years, and you can see in the left picture that big cars need to pass the line, and it's not enough space for everyone. And now we changed the infrastructure, and now it's much better, of course, for cyclists, and we got a lot of positive feedback. Now we have a wheel bike lane, which is only for bikers, and next to the bike lane is a lane for cars, just for the cars, but you can't park your car there anymore like you could in the left picture. What else? There is a new crossing of a street, and here we created a very newer for cycle traffic. And what's special here is that we can recognize the bicycles by using a detector very early. And so in best case, the traffic light turns green immediately, so you don't have to wait, and you can cycle along without waiting any second. And this is an example for a bike road in Möhringer Straße. I don't know if bike roads are common in the US, but we are planning the bike roads in the subordinated traffic network. So these are streets which can only used by car if you are a resident in the street, if you're living in the street, and priority is for bikes. And priority you get on every intersection, so you don't have to wait on the intersection to look if a car comes from another side. So you can just pass the intersection. And very important for us is to make very clear marking to make sure everyone knows that this is a road for bikes and just for cars if you are living in the street. And the speed maximum is 13 kilometers per hour. In Stuttgart, we have now a lot of them, and on our bike route number 1 as well. And they're looking like this, and we are very clearly in marking. We choose a color that everyone in Stuttgart nowadays knows, okay, this is a bike road, and you can't enter, and you have to give priority to bikers. This is an example for a bike pass in the city center, and normally we try to avoid bike paths, especially for both directions and in the inner city context, but sometimes, of course, it's hard if it's difficult to cross the street, for example, like you can see here, there's a very, very big highway. You can't cross it at the point where you arrive. And so we offer bike paths for both directions. But it is very dangerous, especially on accesses to, for example, parking garages, like in this example, because drivers often, of course, do not expect that bicycles come from both directions. They are always looking to the left and not to the right. And so sometimes accidents happen. And this is why we try to avoid bicycle paths for both directions. And we try to build them just for one direction. What else do we do? Here I give you an example for intersection. What we did recently, and this is how we plan intersections. And we want to enable cyclists to pass the waiting cars and to position themselves in front of the motorists, so they get into the pole position, and bicycles can ride off first and do not come into conflict with drivers turning right, for example. And this is the example for turning left. And if someone wants to turn left without changing the lane, if you're coming on a biking lane, don't want to cross the car lane, we give some space to cross the street indirectly, and so you don't need to leave your bike lane and you can cross the intersection like this. Yeah, I've got a last example for a bike lane in Nürnberger Straße, which we did 2 years ago, and when we plan cycle lanes, for us it's very important that we plan them as wide as possible. And what else is very important to us is that we put a safe distance from parked cars to the cycle lane to avoid dooring accidents. And of course, the cycle lane in the right-hand picture is much better accepted than the left one before. The left one was just the space we had, and now we had 2 car lanes, and we took 1 car lane and made a very, very wide bicycle lane. And this is very safe, and people enjoying riding there. Yeah, if you're interested in the sketches, they are from a manual that can be found for free in the internet as well, and there's a link you can have a look inside if you want to. And this is what I wanted to tell you about bike planning in Stuttgart, and thank you a lot.
Great, thank you so much, Nadine and Martin. This has been so interesting. I see a number of questions in the Q&A box because I think people in general are very intrigued by the differences. I mean, in terms of funding, in terms of even just, placement of these bike lanes in the street. As much as I'm familiar with, I've never seen anything like having a street dedicated to a bike lane. So even simple things like that are fascinating. But why don't we go ahead and jump into the Q&A, and thank you, Nadine, for also answering a few. But I guess the first question is from Jeff. He says, we have so much to learn from your beautiful region. We are noticing a change in the USA transit systems that are allowing for more scooters, bikes, etc., to come into the train, subway, and buses. And I guess his question is, how are you dealing with this issue? And for Martin in particular, has the e-bike adoption challenged the design speed for your facilities design and planning, or any major increase in e-cycling, positives and negatives? It's a big question, so maybe pieces of that, Martin, as you can.
Well, normally, yeah, e-bikes are it's more or less the same. Bikers can also ride by 20 kilometers per hour, and e-bikers do it maybe a little bit faster. So our cycle routes and our cycle passes are accessible for e-bikers as well. But what we notice, of course, is that our infrastructure sometimes is not provided for so much bikers, and the e-bikers, especially in our hilly region, are very important to us because now we have a lot of bikers, and now we notice that our wideness or our spaces are too small for so much bikes, and so we start planning a lot of bigger and wider infrastructure, and this is very hard for us. And and for example, the topic with public transport, it's very difficult for us as well. And I showed you 2 examples where it's very good working with the streetcar and the bus, but in the buses directly, for example, it's nowadays not allowed to put your bikes, as you can't. And we have in the streetcars, you can take your bikes, but not in the very early morning and not in the afternoon, just in the nights and for the day. But sometimes, of course, they are a lot crowded with people, and so you can't take a bike with it.
For the S-Bahn, I can add on that. So in the peak, in the morning peak hour between 6 and 9, you're not allowed to take your bike. But after that, you're allowed to take your bike, and before that too. And in the evening, it doesn't matter, and you don't have to pay for it. So this is only for the metropolitan trains. But Martin already explained perfectly how it works for the cable car and all the other public transports.
Great, thank you. And then our next question, and maybe we'll combine it with another question that we received, was from Pierre. He said, was there any impact on local transit when some streets were converted into bike roads? And Jennifer had a similar question of, are there any conflicting interests in that case at the local level as well?
Yes, sometimes, yeah, we have an impact on local transit, of course. And if I'm honest, we want that our measures have an impact on the local transit because we want to bring more people on bikes, yeah, and we can't provide the same capacity for cars and just offer bike lanes. No, our bike lanes, of course, impact the car traffic, and people in cars shall see that there's a nice bike route which is free, and you're maybe a little bit faster if you use your bike. And so yes, it has an impact, and we want that it has an impact.
Maybe also something to add on that. So we also have synergies sometimes when it comes to the train and the bike, because very often, for example, when we save space for certain infrastructure on the regional level, originally for the trains, and then the train, so there won't be a train line due to financial aspects or something, then we have instead very often a bicycle lane. Or for example, when we have very old train lines where local governments try to reactivate the trains, but again, economically or for certain other reasons, it won't work, they take that lane to implement a bicycle lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the question was, no, bicycles are or cyclists are not required to use the two-step left turn. It's just an offer. You can use, but you don't have to.
Great. We have a few more questions in here, a little less than 10 minutes. So hopefully we'll cover them all. Jennifer next asked, are major railroads that are privately owned are a huge obstacle to trail development? They don't allow rails with trails, and it's difficult to negotiate a crossing. And so how do you work with railroads in your region?
Very often we have railroads and bike lanes next to each other. So in Germany, it's very usual that we have them beside each other. And when it comes to crossings, of course, there's it's very expensive to build either the bridge. It doesn't matter if it's a road or a train track, or to have the I don't know the word for it, but to go under the street or the train track or above. And very often cities get money from the national level to cover that. One example we have at the moment for the fast bicycle lane between Stuttgart and Böblingen, where the national and state level fund a bridge to cross that very dangerous road.
Thank you. Yeah, it is something that we struggle with in the United States. So it's a little bit funny to hear that it's actually quite easy for that over in Germany. let's see, the next question, there's only a short season for using bikes because of snow and ice. And do you guys have any best practices in how you deal with that?
Okay, I was preparing another question, sorry.
We don't have that much
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah, yeah, we have okay, we have 3 days with snow a year, maybe,
Okay.
and it's okay. Yeah,
You have more snow.
yeah,
Gotta say, I feel like it's a larger issue over here, and
Yeah.
yeah, you probably see shifts in the transportation modes within that season as well.
And we have usual maintenance for the roads, so they then also cover the bicycle roads.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Let's see.
I see something about removing parking at
Yeah,
these
that
lanes.
yeah,
This is a very interesting one, maybe, Martin, for you.
it was I was preparing. Yeah, how do we handle conflict? Interested as a, for example, removing parking. Yeah, of course we do have these conflicts. We try to communicate a lot, but in the end, there is a decision by the local government, and yeah, there's no right to park in the street, and we have yeah, but it's hard, of course, and people are used to park the cars in the street, and we are changing their, their day life by planning bike lanes sometimes, and yeah, but it's like this. We just do it, and afterwards, yeah, of course, there are a lot of people are annoyed of this, but we are doing it anyhow. But it's not easy. Yeah.
I can imagine. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Let's see here. We've received a bunch of them. We have a few from Michael Jackson. One question he asked, in Stuttgart, are there many single-family homes like in North American cities, or do most people live in multi-family residential buildings? Because that does impact bicycling ability, particularly in Northern Virginia as well.
Of course, yeah. Now in the city center of Stuttgart or in the inner city, all the people live in multi-family residential buildings, yeah, of course, and so it's a very dense city, and so biking matters, and only in the outer outer villages of the city of Stuttgart, the people are living in single family homes, but not as wide as in the US, as I think you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see, any additional questions here? We have a few comments as well. Looks like the last question I can see is from David Patton. Is German rail all publicly owned throughout the country?
Difficult.
Mostly, but not all, but mostly. Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I see we do have just a minute or so left. If there's any final comments, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. But just as we wrap up, these slides will be on NVRC's website following the event, including emails for Nadine and Martin if you have any additional questions, which it sounds like a number of folks might to learn more. Again, we'll also be putting this recording on our YouTube page, and please stay in touch with NVRC if you have any additional interest in recreational trails planning and development as well. So with that, we can give it maybe a couple more seconds in case anybody has any additional questions in here, but Martin and Nadine, thank you so much again for presenting to the group today. I know I've learned a lot, and it sounds like everybody else has as well. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you too. Thank you for organizing it
Thank
and
you very
bringing us
much.
together.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here.